I'm doing this at the beginning of the video that I've just made that you'll get after I've made this, if that makes sense. It doesn't make sense, I know it doesn't, but I just wanted to read some of what I'm talking about, or some of Kamala Harris's book. Um, how can you dream if you make minimum wage and work 40 hours a week, knowing that in 99% of US counties you can't afford the market rate rent on the average one-bedroom apartment? How can you dream when your pay barely budges no matter how hard you work, while everything else keeps getting much more expensive? How can you dream when your son is sick but you can't afford your copay or deductible? A middle class life isn't what it used to be, and right now it isn't what it's supposed to be. Being middle class ought to mean having financial security and stability, but how is that possible when the cost of living is so high that you live one setback away from catastrophe? An injury, an illness. Nobody expects life to be easy, but it's not supposed to be life-altering. A life-altering crisis when your car's transmission fails. And yet for so many it is. One setback and savings accounts get emptied. Another and the retirement account goes too. Soon you're carrying a bigger balance on your credit card than you know is safe. But what choice do you have? You have to get the car fixed if you're going to keep your job. There is rent or a mortgage to pay. According to one survey, 57% of Americans don't have enough cash to cover a $500 unexpected expense. So I just wanted to read that bit. There's a lot of good stuff in this book. I'm reading Kamala Harris's book, The Truths We Hold. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, The Truths We Hold. And I'm sort of not understanding why in America there is some of the healthcare isn't available to a lot of people. Childcare isn't available to a lot of people, and it's so expensive. She says here, how can you dream when on average a year of childcare for a baby or toddler is more expensive than a year of in-state public college tuition? And I'm wondering why, and I don't know the answer. I'm wondering why here in France childcare is very affordable. I'm not going to say this categorically, but most babies and children go to a nanny quite early on, and then from there they go on to maternelle, which is like kindergarten. But it's affordable. Parents can afford to send their children into childcare. I guess it's subsidised by the state. Food here, children's food, school meals are subsidised, and everybody gets fed. What's the other thing? Oh, people, sick pay. I mean, sick pay, when I first understood it years ago, sick pay was silly. I knew someone that was off, were they unemployed? I don't think they were off sick. They'd come to an agreement with their employer that they could be made redundant. They were made redundant, and then they were on 80% of their last salary for the next 2 years whilst they found themselves another job. And I know that particular person milked that and didn't find another job right until the end. And I know that obviously a lot of people did that, and I don't know whether that has changed now. But I know that our system, our healthcare system is really good, and you know Mark had his knee done in October last year, and it didn't cost him anything, and he's having his other knee done in October this year, and it won't cost him anything. We pay an insurance, but it's not extortionate, it's not expensive. In American terms, it's not expensive, but that is a top-up insurance that pays for 30% of our healthcare. The rest is picked up by, I think our cotisation go to that. So people that are working are supporting the people that aren't working, but not begrudgingly. And I think that's really important, that people say our taxes are high here. Well, our taxes are high comparatively, but if you look around, and you've seen me do the road trips, you've seen how well kept our environment is, how mostly our roads are in good condition, our roundabouts are taken care of, our verges are taken care of, that all of the money that people are paying from their wages in cotistation are going to pay for public services, are going to subsidise your childcare, your school meal, and all of that. And it just feels, it feels better. You know, people, I'm sure there are people here going to bed at night wondering how they're going to feed their children. I'm not saying it's a perfect place, but I'm struck by how different it is in America, and how the extortionate amount you pay for medical issues, and nobody knows when they're going to get ill. Nobody can plan for illness, and people being made bankrupt because suddenly they become ill and they're having to pay huge amounts of money to pay for all their needs in that medical situation. I have, because of my polymyalgia rheumatica, I have got an ADL, which is something it might not be ADL, I can't remember now, because when I first came across it I didn't understand it, but I've got an enduring illness. It's like the polymyalgia rheumatica and the rheumatoid arthritis are unlikely to go away. Diabetes is another one that is also, I think it's ADL. I haven't looked for ages. But my prescriptions and my doctor's visits are free. I don't pay anything. When we first used to go to the doctor when we were younger here, we paid. But it was only like €30 per appointment. €30 per appointment. I don't know how much you pay to visit I can't remember what you call them in America now, but your medical practitioner, your doctor. But we paid €30, and now, because we're both of an age, we don't pay. I'm just struck by that, and reading that, and understanding why she's so incensed about how people are really struggling to get by. And there's so much in her book that's giving me a good insight into how it is over there, and her fight is, it seems to me that she will fight for some equality for those people that need it most, that the people that are working hard, sometimes 2 jobs, sometimes 3, but still not really getting by. And yet you've got people, I'm going to say above the middle class, because I think that she's also fighting for the middle classes, but you've got people that have plenty of money, that are, and I know there's this thing in America, if you work hard you get the rewards, but you don't. People are doing 3 jobs. People are cleaning your toilets and mopping your floors and getting rid of your garbage, and they're working hard, and they're not making enough money to deal with any emergency that comes up. They're maybe 1 or 2 weeks away from homelessness. It doesn't make sense to me, and I know that our system needs rationalising. Our system isn't perfect, but I wonder what we're doing, or what we have been doing, that's made it so that our population feel supported and can afford to live. There are people here who own more than one property. I don't know how that works, because that certainly doesn't happen in the UK. properties in the UK are stupidly expensive. Properties over here are not so expensive. They're still, I'm sure that's, I don't know how much this would be worth now. This was, when we bought this 18 years ago, it was €147,000, which equated to about £100,000 in the UK 18 years ago. I don't know what this would be worth now. Properties don't increase in value here in the way that they do over in the UK. You don't get sudden, rising properties prices like that. But this would, I don't know whether this would be 250 now. I don't know. But that's still, for the size of property and the amount of land, that's still good value. But people people here, have more than one property. Our neighbour, who's here on a holiday, that's her holiday home. She lives on the outskirts of Paris. I think she lives in an apartment. I'm sure he probably owns his mum's property. When she died, he probably owns that property. Other neighbour has, I know, they bought an apartment in Paris for Poitiers, so when their kids went to lycée, they could have somewhere to live. People own more than one property here, which they can afford to do, and I don't know how. Jo, my daughter, was part owner. She doesn't own. She's paying for her property that she lives in now, but at the same time as that, she was also part owner in another property, and he's bought her out, so she's happy about that. But she and the other members of the family will inherit this house when Mark and I die. I don't know what they'll do with it, but she'll probably still own the house that she's in now. That's the way it is. So I don't understand why it's so hard. I think there's this whole belief that giving assistance to people, providing them with assistance, subsidizing them is communist, and it isn't. It is not communist. And I think many Americans get muddled with socialism and communism, and they talk about so and so being a commie when they really don't understand. But why don't we help people? Why aren't we helping and lifting people up? Why are we allowing people to ride along through the gutter, hardly making ends meet, when we're living the life of Riley? I don't understand that. I don't understand that mindset. I really don't. So yeah, and I've just been watching Nancy Pelosi. I watched an interview. She was interviewed by New York Times journalist whose name I can't remember. That was interesting, especially towards the end. She talked about the Orange Man. She doesn't refer to him as that, but talks about how he doesn't look into the future, how he would come and say, I need this, I've got to pay this, I made this deal and I've got to pay this. And she's saying, well, you can have this, but you need to vote for this and pay for this. That he hadn't thought ahead. He had to compensate the farmers because he did a China deal that didn't work out. And so that was an interesting interview for me. She's written a book. It's a bit expensive at the moment. I looked. It's I can't remember on Kindle, because I read on Kindle. It's about €16, £16 on Kindle. Well, that's a lot of money. I'll wait and see if that comes down, and then maybe I will buy it. So yeah, that's what's going on. It's going to be very hot today, this and tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a bit hotter, but here is going to be 36 centigrade by 2 o'clock. It's quite pleasant sitting out here at the moment, but I'll have to go in a bit. The cockerel is still alive, and I gave him more worm medicine last night because he's gaping. I nearly choked him, which wasn't a good thing. The syringe suddenly squirted and shot to the back of his throat. I'm sure he probably aspirated some of it, which is a bit of a worry. But he's staying in, he's not coming out. But he's in, he's staying in, there's food in there, there's water in there, and I don't know. maybe he's just old, you know. I don't know. And I tried yesterday morning when I went down. I walked behind him to encourage him to come out, and he came out and got halfway down through the run, and I thought I was going to get him out, and he was very determined and turned around and went back. So I'm not going to force it with him. It's, you know, I've reached a point that if he lives, he lives. If he doesn't, he doesn't. He he's got to do his own thing now. So, but yeah, he's still alive. Unbelievable. So there's a chicken up here. Come for a drink. Come for a drink. Where's everybody else? Where's everybody else? So she's quite noisy. She's the noisy one, aren't you? And she squats. If you get very close to her, she squats, which is what they do in front of a cockerel when the cockerel's going to tread them. So what I do with chickens that squat is I put my hand on their back and ruffle their feathers a bit and make them think that they're being treaded, and then they have a good old shake afterwards and fluff their feathers. It's quite funny, really. They're still laying well, this one and the azure. Blue eggs, brown eggs. Cuckoo Maren's still limping. I think that's going to be a permanent thing. And I don't think I can do any more about that. I think she's got some sort of deformity. So she comes out. She's probably down there somewhere. You've still got poo on your foot. Poo and straw stuck to your foot. You've not been scratching enough to get rid of that, have you? So this isn't a day for making cloud videos. The sky was very messy earlier. Anyway, that'll do from me. And that'll do from me. That's it from me, and that's it from her. That's what happens sometimes on a Sunday. You get people out enjoying riding their bikes. Okay, thanks for watching.